If you're looking for settings that'll make your arena fights look like this, then look no further. Chapter 4 is finally here, and to start it off, we're going to be showing you guys the best keyboard and mouse settings to dominate your competition this new chapter. Sensitivity. To start off the video, we're going to cover everything you need to know about sensitivity. But first, let's see how the brand new weapons may affect it. For starters, the new Thunder shotgun hits hard, and I mean hard. The gray variant deals 173 damage to the head, the green deals 183, and the blue deals a whopping 195. Although you think that this means the purple and gold can one-shot, they can't. Epic decided to cap the weapon's damage at 195. Now, while this may be disappointing, it's honestly more balanced, so we'll let it slide. However, with such a strong shotgun in the game, you need to make sure your aim is on point. So consider that when deciding on sensitivity later. For long range, we've got the Red Eye assault rifle, and this thing is extremely powerful, but requires some solid crosshair control to be successful. 40 damage to the body and 60 to the head is crazy, so ADS control should be main priorities this chapter. With that out of the way, let's start by going over your look sensitivity. As you probably already know, playing with a keyboard and mouse offers a ton of flexibility. There's so many different ways of controlling your mouse that one sensitivity may feel slow for some players, while that same sense feels extremely fast for others. Before you decide on a sensitivity for Chapter 4, you need to figure out what type of aimer you are. If you're an arm aimer, meaning you use your entire arm across your mouse pad, you're gonna need a lower sensitivity. Something around 5.5 to 6.5% should be slow enough to where you can easily hit your shots while still being able to build and edit quickly without feeling like you're constantly over swiping. If you're a wrist aimer, meaning you aim with your wrist while your arm stays in place, you're gonna need a higher sensitivity. Before we give our sensitivity recommendations, you need to understand that wrist aiming is much more versatile when it comes to choosing a sense. While 10% would be considered a high sense to most players, there's some who play all the way up in the 20s, 30s, and even 40s. Don't even get me started on DPI, as most of the players on crazy high sensitivities are also on high DPI, but we'll get more into that later on. For Chapter 4, we're going to recommend something in between 10 and 13%. This range is typically most common, as you have tons of flexibility when it comes to flicking and making quick plays in general, while still having solid enough control to hit your shots consistently. If you'd place yourself somewhere in between arm and wrist aiming, we'd recommend keeping your sensitivity over 7% but under 10%. This range is most common amongst the pros and usually feels most comfortable to the average Joes. You can adjust your sensitivity to catering towards the movements you feel most comfortable making. If you feel more comfortable swiping your arm, try out 7 or 8%. If you feel more comfortable flicking your wrist, try out 9 or 10%. As we said previously, aiming with a mouse is extremely versatile. It's gonna come down to how much mouse pad room you have, how heavy your mouse is, and your natural strong points. Even if you feel confident in your current method of aiming, we'd still recommend venturing towards the opposite end of the spectrum you'd place yourself on. Even if it doesn't feel better, you'll be gaining perspective while increasing your mouse control. People actually do this while aim training. For your ADS sensitivity, we recommend sticking to the lower middle range. Something like 40 or 45% will be slow enough to laser opponents on foot while still having enough speed to track quick-moving players in the air. For your scope sensitivity, we recommend the higher middle range. Anything from 60 to 70% will give you solid control while not being too slow for crosshair adjustments. If you're serious about improving, head on over to ProGuides.com, where you can access all of our courses and bootcamp content for just $7.99. And if personalized coaching is more your speed, you'll get 10% off any session with any one of our pros. Yeah! Building. All right, it's finally time to hop into your keybinds. We're gonna start off with the foundation, your building binds. But before we do that, we need to make sure that everyone understands what it means to have optimal binds. Your main goal when assigning your keybind should be to limit the amount of times you're forced to move your fingers from your WASD movement keys. The more often your fingers are being used for something else, the more often your movement will be paused or delayed. When it comes to even the basics of building, taking 90s for example, not being able to hold a constant directional movement will mess up everything. To make your movement fully functional, you're going to need a mouse with at least 2 side buttons on it. Doing this will free 2 of your optional keybinds for something that won't affect your building. We'd recommend placing both your wall and ramp pieces on these side buttons. These pieces are pretty much the core of building, and being able to swap back and forth from one to the other with this same finger is game-changing. For your cone and floor pieces, we'd recommend anything close to your movement keys. Keys like Q, E, F, and Shift all work great. Dragging your finger from your movement key to the key directly next to it is the best that you can get. However, Shift is hit with your pinky and won't take away from your movement in the slightest. So using it as a building bind is definitely worth it. All right, Fortnite fam, it's time for the question of the day. Are you glad that the Thunder Shotgun can't one-shot? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Editing. If you took our advice and mapped 2 building pieces to your side buttons, you'll have quite the variety of options for an edit bind. E and F seem to be the most common amongst the pros. These binds are right next to your W keys and can be spammed pretty easily. Most players find that they have their most strength in their pointer finger and won't get fatigued after tons of editing. Ideally, your edit binds would be mapped to a non-movement key finger. However, the only way to really do this is by using Shift, and editing with your pinky isn't very practical. Scroll wheel reset may sound like common sense in Chapter 4, but a lot of you guys still aren't using it. Set both your secondary edit and reset building edit binds to scroll wheel down. This will make it so that you only need to scroll down on your scroll wheel to reset and edit. Scroll wheel reset is one of the biggest advantages of playing on keyboard and mouse and should be taken advantage of by everyone. Controller players have even been playing with macros to get the same one bind reset effect. With all of that out of the way, you know we can't forget about Confirm Edit on release. Confirm Edit on release was introduced at the launch of Chapter 2, so we've definitely had enough time to see if the setting is worth it or not. With the setting enabled, each edit you make will be confirmed automatically after releasing your left click instead of having to hit a confirm bind. As you'd likely imagine, having the setting enabled will almost instantly increase your editing speed. Great, right? Well, there is a catch. Since each edit is confirmed after releasing your left click, you'll need to keep your crosshair positioned on the last tile you selected until you want to confirm it. This can be a huge setback when it comes to making smart edit plays against an opponent. There is definitely pros and cons of the setting, so it is up to you to decide which option would be better for yourself. A majority of the pros have it disabled, but there is definitely a solid amount that use it. Speaking of pros, head over to ProGuides.com where you can get personalized coaching from any of our pros for 10% along with access to all of our courses and bootcamp content, all for just $7.99. If you already have some pretty quick edits, we'd recommend keeping the setting disabled. The extra speed you'll be gaining won't be worth it when you're constantly met with that awkward crosshair placement dilemma each fight you take. On the other hand, if you're considering editing to be one of your weak points, we'd actually recommend giving the setting a shot. You'll notice an instant increase of speed, and the removal of the confirm bind may make editing an easier task for you in general. Other key binds. With that out of the way, you know we couldn't forget about the miscellaneous binds you'd usually forget about. For crouching, we'd recommend binding it to a key that can be hit with your pinky finger. Most players seem to use the bottom left control or caps lock, but Shift is also a great option if you still have that unbound. For your inventory slots, we'd recommend using keys 1 through 5 as well as whatever optimal keys you have available. This will be used for your shotgun slot, and the number keys will be used for whatever else. Just make sure everything feels comfortable. For your use bind, we'd recommend using scroll wheel up. Using your scroll wheel to pick up loot is basically the equivalent of spamming a key 4 or 5 times rapidly. This comes in clutch when 50-50ing another player off spawn. Finally, for your inventory bind, we'd recommend using any key that can be hit somewhat quickly and won't be misclicked while playing. Well, that wraps up things for today, Fortnite fam. Did you enjoy the video? Be sure to leave a like and ring that bell to stay up to date with all the latest and greatest tips and tricks that we have to offer. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let us know if there's anything you would be interested in learning more about. Remember guys, keyboard and mouse is extremely flexible. It's gonna take some trial and error to see what feels best for yourself. So start by considering our recommendations and make any adjustments you see being beneficial. Once again, my name is Zephyr, and I'll see you in our next video here at ProGuides.